A Map of Thought, Episode 28, Zeynep Tufekci. A movement can conquer the entire internet in a single afternoon and still lose completely within a month. That gap between viral speed and lasting power is the whole subject of today's episode.
Let us start with the historical contrast that makes this so vivid. You mentioned the March on Washington earlier.
Here is a fact that should genuinely stop you. The famous 1963 March on Washington, the one where Martin Luther King delivered his most remembered speech, took months of exhausting, unglamorous logistical work before a single person ever marched. Organizers spent months negotiating with dozens of separate civil rights groups, unions, and church networks just to get everyone pointed in the same direction. They arranged bus routes from cities across the country. They trained thousands of volunteer marshals to keep the event peaceful. They built relationships with journalists in advance so the coverage would land the way they needed it to land. By the time 250,000 people showed up, the actual hard work was already finished.
Compare that to how a modern movement gets started.
A single video, a single hashtag, and within hours, hundreds of thousands of people can be organizing in the streets of a dozen countries at once, with no committee, no months of coalition building, sometimes no identifiable leader at all. Zeynep Tufekci watched this happen firsthand, as both a researcher and an active participant, during the 2011 Arab Spring uprisings and the 2013 Gezi Park protests in Istanbul, and she built an entire framework around a genuinely uncomfortable discovery. That speed is not a pure upgrade. It is a trade.
What exactly gets traded away?
Here is the trade, stated as plainly as possible. The old, slow method of organizing, the kind that built the March on Washington, forced movements to build something almost by accident along the way, real organizational capacity. Trained leaders who could actually sit across a table from a government and negotiate specific, binding demands. Internal decision, making structures that could survive disagreement without the whole thing collapsing. Networks of trust built over months that could hold together under real pressure. A movement that assembles overnight through social media often skips that entire slow, painful process because it does not need it to get people into the streets. But Tufekci's research found that same movement then frequently discovers, at the exact moment it needs to negotiate with power, that it has nobody who can credibly speak for the whole group, no internal process for deciding what to actually demand, and no proven capacity to keep momentum going once the initial viral surge fades. The government it is protesting can simply wait it out.
Before the wedding comparison, I want to understand the mechanism more precisely. Why does fast digital organizing skip the capacity building specifically, rather than just doing it faster?
Here is the mechanism, and it is worth naming precisely because it is not obvious at first. Building a movement the old way required solving a genuinely hard coordination problem before you could get anyone into the streets at all, which meant leaders naturally emerged through that difficult process, tested and trusted by the people who had worked alongside them for months. Digital tools solve the coordination problem so effortlessly, a single post reaching millions of people in minutes, that the movement never actually needs anyone to emerge as a tested, trusted decision maker in order to get large numbers of people mobilized. Tufekci called this the difference between organizing capacity, the slow accumulated ability to actually make hard collective decisions and negotiate as one voice, and mobilizing capacity, the fast ability to simply get a crowd into a physical space. Modern platforms are extraordinary at the second thing and often accidentally undermine the first, precisely because they remove the very friction that used to force organizing capacity to develop as a side effect.
Give us the day-to-day version of this, because it is a genuinely relatable pattern once you see it in something smaller.
Think about the difference between a wedding planned over 6 full months and a party thrown together in a group chat the night before. The group chat party can absolutely happen, and it might even be a great night. But watch what happens the moment anything goes wrong. The venue falls through, Someone shows up who should not have been invited. Two guests get into an argument. The 6-month wedding has a maid of honor, a planner, an agreed seating chart, and a clear person everyone already trusts to make the final call under pressure. The overnight party has none of that built in advance, because building it was never the point. It got the party started fast. It just was not built to survive a real crisis once one actually showed up.
Did this pattern repeat in more recent movements as well, or was it specific to the Arab Spring?
It repeated, and this is where the pattern becomes hard to ignore. The Black Lives Matter movement, particularly during its enormous surge of activity in the summer of 2020, mobilized an extraordinary number of people with breathtaking speed, becoming one of the largest protest movements in American history within a matter of weeks. And it faced genuinely difficult internal debates afterward about exactly the problem Tufekci had already mapped years earlier, whether a deliberately decentralized, leaderless structure that made rapid mobilization possible in the first place was also making it harder to negotiate concrete policy wins, agree on unified demands, or sustain organizational pressure once media attention moved elsewhere. Different chapters and organizers within the movement reached genuinely different conclusions about this, and that disagreement itself is a live, ongoing example of the exact tension Tufekci identified.
Where does the technology itself, not just the speed, complicate things?
Here is the part that should genuinely worry you. The same algorithmic systems that can make a protest video spread to millions of people overnight are not neutral megaphones. They are built to maximize engagement, and outrage, fear, and moral certainty tend to spread faster than careful, nuanced argument. Tufekci's research documented how this same amplification machinery that can rapidly mobilize a genuine protest movement can just as easily, and just as quickly, spread deliberate misinformation designed to discredit that same movement, or to manufacture confusion about what actually happened on the ground. The tool that gives networked movements their speed is the exact same tool that can be turned against them, often within the same news cycle. Gezi Park itself is the case Tufekci returned to most often, precisely because she was there in person. What began in May of 2013 as a small local protest against the demolition of a park in central Istanbul exploded within days into a nationwide wave of demonstrations, coordinated almost entirely through social media, after video of a harsh police crackdown spread rapidly online. The movement achieved an enormous, immediate emotional and symbolic victory, genuinely shifting national conversation and drawing global attention. And yet within a relatively short period, it struggled to translate that explosive visibility into any durable, negotiated change in government policy, precisely because it had never built the internal structures needed to actually sit across a table and negotiate as a unified, accountable voice. The government, by contrast, never needed to solve a coordination problem at all. It simply had to wait.
Where does this show up in the world right now?
Constantly, across an enormous range of countries. Protest movements today routinely organize through encrypted messaging apps, specifically to stay a step ahead of government surveillance, coordinating logistics, sharing safety information, and making rapid collective decisions in real time, in ways that would have been simply unimaginable to organizers in 1963. That encryption genuinely protects people from real danger. It also means these movements are, once again, often building fast, encrypted coordination without necessarily building the slower, more durable organizational muscle that turns a large crowd into a negotiating force capable of extracting a lasting concession from whatever government or institution it is confronting. The honest lesson to take from Tufekci is not that fast, networked organizing is bad, and not that the old, slow method was automatically better. It is that speed and durability are two genuinely different achievements, and a movement that has mastered one has not automatically mastered the other. Anyone starting a movement today would do well to ask, quite deliberately, which one they are actually building. Next time, we take the biggest possible step back in this entire series, away from how movements organize themselves, and toward the largest question underneath almost everything we have covered so far. What does development and freedom itself actually mean for human life? We meet Amartya Sen, an economist who proved, using nothing but careful historical evidence, that famine is never really about a simple shortage of food.
See you then.